I think where we should start, Dr. Aditi, is can you just describe and define what stress is so that we're all thinking about and talking about the same thing?
You and I will often say, "Oh, I'm so stressed. I've had a really difficult week. Oh my God, this day was so stressful." That word stress is thrown around all the time. And what really is happening is what you're describing is scientifically, it's called maladaptive stress. There are, in fact, two kinds of stress. Not all stress is created equal. There is healthy stress and unhealthy stress. Healthy stress moves your life forward. And it is all of these wonderful things like getting a new job, falling in love, getting a promotion, having a child, doing things that help move your life forward. Your 5-second rule in the morning is a manifestation of healthy, positive stress. Unhealthy stress is what we talk about when we say, I'm so stressed, it's been a stressful day, it's been a stressful week. Unhealthy stress is maladaptive. Healthy stress is adaptive. I won't use too many scientific words.
I was just going to say, what is maladaptive? Does that mean that we shouldn't be doing it? Like, what does maladaptive mean?
So healthy stress is adaptive, meaning you are meeting the moment and you are adapting to the situation so you can move forward. And healthy stress moves your life forward. It is productive. It gets you up out of bed in the morning. It drives your life forward.
Now, let me just make sure that I understand this, because I think I already learned something from you, which is in those moments in life where your heart is racing and you're feeling, we might call it nervous, we might call it excited. So right before you're about to give a little presentation in front of your class or at work, or you're about to ask somebody out on a date, or you're standing at the starting line of your first 5K, all of that sort of energy that you feel in your body, you're saying it's a really important part of life because that energy is signaling like, okay, we got to get up and go. Time to do the thing. Time to ask the person. Time to grow. Time to learn. And so that kind of stress is really important because it fuels your growth. It fuels you trying new things. It's a little source of motivation. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Fear and excitement live in the same part of your brain.
Okay.
And it's about understanding that. And so you can use that to your advantage. When you are feeling fearful about something new or exciting, tell yourself, okay, no, this is not fear. This is excitement. I can do this. And then once you move past that hurdle and actually do it, you feel a sense of accomplishment. We call it agency, self-efficacy, like, oh, I did this, I can do it again, or I can do something else. So when you are thinking about healthy stress, that sense of those invigorating moments is really what it's about. And so healthy stress is positive. It moves your life forward. It gets you things that otherwise you wouldn't do. Otherwise, you'd be in your safety zone and comfort zone. Unhealthy stress is different. There are a million flavors of unhealthy stress. You could have, mental manifestations, anxiety, depression, insomnia, hypervigilance, mood disorders, then physical manifestations, headaches, neck pain, shoulder pain, back pain, GI symptoms. The list goes on and on. The goal of life is not to live a life with zero stress. It is, in fact, biologically impossible. It is to live a life with healthy, manageable stress. When we have healthy, positive stress that drives our life forward, if it gets out of hand and becomes a runaway train, that's when it can become unproductive, dysfunctional, and really get in the way of our forward momentum. And that's when it becomes unhealthy. But the goal is to move away from unhealthy stress back to healthy, manageable stress so it can drive you forward rather than get in the way of your forward goals and dreams and hopes.
I am so excited you're here because the idea of being able to manage it in a different way so that your own life or work or the things that you're facing in your life, challenges, opportunities, are not running you over.
That's right.
I want to ask a question that might seem a little dumb. How do you actually know if you're stressed? And the reason why I say that is because I had this experience with our son, Oakley, where I had no idea how sad and lonely he was in middle school. Like I kind of knew, but I didn't know the extent of it until we moved to Southern Vermont. And he started high school there, and I saw him happy. And I asked that question, how do you know if you're truly stressed or whether you just throw the word around? because I think sometimes you get so used to the feeling of being on edge or running on empty or being overwhelmed or constantly overthinking that you don't realize the bigger issue. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. If you are wondering, am I stressed? Am I burned out? Based on the data shows that 70% of people, 7 out of 10 people, are feeling a sense of stress and burnout at this very moment. In a room of 30 people, that's like saying 21 people have stress and burnout. That is a vast number. So if you are feeling like, could I be stressed? Could this be me? The answer is likely to be yes. Stress and burnout currently are not the exception. They are the rule. Think back to how you were back in maybe 2016. So 2020 onwards, it's a wash. Most likely you have had some form of stress and you've been dealing with it in your own way. But think back, and are you different now than you were back then? Now, of course, most of us will say, yeah, most of you will say, of course I'm different because I've lived through things that I have never lived through before, right? Yeah. 2020, 2021, it was a very difficult time for many people. But if you are different from your baseline, that means if your sleep is affected, if you are having some difficulty with socialization, if you are having challenges with productivity, with your mood, with energy, if you are having bodily changes that are different, think about how you were at your baseline in 2016. Think about how different you are now. Chances are you will say, yes, I'm vastly different, and it's most likely because of stress and burnout.
Wow. I think I just had this epiphany. So I've always thought about stress as a byproduct of a super busy life, right? Or of challenges or of, thinking too much or whatever it may be, okay? But as I listen to you and I think back to 2016, and as you're listening to us and taking us on a walk or you're listening in the car, I want you to think back. Because I'm going, okay, our daughter was still in high school. I mean, how many years? Was that like 10? I can't do the math. Is it like 9 years?
I also can't do the math.
8 years ago. So my daughter's like just graduating from high school. I'm definitely not feeling, I was more in my body back then in terms of feeling more present. I didn't feel this constant sense that something was looming. And so as you think back and you notice this difference, I'm having this epiphany where I'm realizing, oh, I think we're about to learn from you. That we think about stress as a byproduct of a ton of things that we can't control. And you're about to flip the paradigm on us and say that actually the singular most important thing that you could do for your health, for your happiness, for everything, is to manage how you are feeling and to try these 5 resets and truly get your stress level under control, because that is impacting everything.
It impacts everything. In fact, stress and burnout, I want to use both of those interchangeably for this particular. Under normal conditions, back in 2016, 17, 18, 19, if you don't want to go back into 2016, think about how you were in 2019. Most likely your brain was being led by the prefrontal cortex, which is this area right behind your forehead, and it governs, it's like adulting. It governs things like planning, organization, memory. Many of you living your lives in 2016, 17, 18, 19 were living through and using the prefrontal cortex to guide your decision-making and your day-to-day life. Stress is governed by another part of your brain, the amygdala. It is a small almond-shaped structure deep in your brain. I can't show you, but it's deep inside between your ears, kind of lower down where your head and your neck kind of meet.
Okay.
This almond-shaped structure, the amygdala, is what houses your stress response. In scientific terms, we call the stress response the fight or flight response. Under periods of normal functioning, when you are thriving and moving through the world, your brain is governed by the prefrontal cortex. Then, during periods of stress, your brain is governed by the amygdala. The amygdala is focused purely on survival and self-preservation. It is cave person mode. You can function for short periods of time in cave person mode, but when it becomes chronic, that is when burnout sets in. What has happened is your brain and your body need a reset and some sort of respite and recovery time.
So does the amygdala not reset itself? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm sitting here thinking, well, every single human being on the planet has been under chronic stress for the last 4 years.
That's right.
You need to help your brain get back to the baseline.
That's
and
right.
if you don't, it's almost as if you might have these periods where you go on vacation or you have a little bit of time off of work or it's really sunny for a couple days and you're like, oh, this is amazing. But you are easily, I'm sure, triggered if you have not reset yourself to go back into being chronically stressed or burnt out. So is that also why this is really important?
Evolutionarily, your amygdala has focused on the fight or flight response. You saw a tiger in the forest, your pupils dilate, your heart starts racing, your lungs start breathing quicker, blood is shunted away from the vital organs to your muscles so you can fight or you can flee. That physiological response takes seconds, and once that acute threat is over, that tiger in the forest, then it comes back to baseline. The problem is that in modern times, that metaphorical tiger is ongoing. We have so many tigers around us. We have financial stress, marital stress. We have stress with engaging in the world, with news headlines and all of these other things.
Traffic, work deadlines, kids that are upset, people that you're worried about. Endless, endless, endless.
It never ends. And so that amygdala is on in the background at a low hum constantly. Over time, we're not resetting our stress if you just are on autopilot because of that low hum in the constant background, which then over time leads to burnout. When you think about someone who has chronic stress and burnout, they're apathetic, they're disengaged, they're not very motivated. In one study, 60% of people with burnout had as their distinguishing feature an inability to disconnect from work. So they showed these manifestations of atypical burnout. And that is the real challenge. When we're walking around the world today, you might think, hey, I'm not stressed. I'm not burnt out. I'm engaging in the world. I'm going to work. I'm spending time with friends. I'm spending time with family. But how do you feel? Do you feel that sense of thriving and flourishing? Or are you running on fumes and just trying to make it through the day? Hands up for that one. I feel like I'm very much in that second camp. Even though I know all of the science about stress and burnout, it's inescapable.
Yeah. Well, what you're making me realize, and I want to just highlight this, is I've never thought about stress and the fact that you are going to have good and bad stress. You are going to have stressful days. You are going to have periods where you feel a lot of pressure. What you're offering is a solution that we can use on a daily basis to recognize when your amygdala is activated, right? So now I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to stop saying I'm stressed, and I'm going to start saying to myself, oh, my amygdala is on fire. I'm in fight, flight, or freeze right now. I need to do a quick reset and bring my body and my prefrontal cortex back online. Because if I don't do a reset, that amygdala is going to keep on firing because it's been firing nonstop for at least 4 years. And so I got to help it out. What are some of the surprising signs or symptoms of stress? Because you just started talking about irritability and this and this and this. Like, what are things that might surprise someone that are signs of stress?
If you have that inner critic of that voice in your head that is berating you, that happens to me too. When I'm feeling a sense of stress, it's like, oh, you should have known better. How come you didn't do this? Or what if I can't do this? And what if I can't? So that inner critic in your ear that is constantly going and telling you all the ways that you are wrong or that you are dumb or you don't have what it takes or you're not enough. It's almost like you other yourself with that inner critic. And that inner critic gets a megaphone. When you feel a sense of stress, we can talk about that. It's because your inner critic is governed and powered by your amygdala, which is your fight or flight response.
This makes so much sense.
It's a way to keep you safe. It's to keep you in your comfort zone, out of danger. You talk about this a lot in your work. You have to do things that are uncomfortable initially if you want to get out of that constant state of feeling low or down or stressed. Same thing. Silence. Understanding that if you are having that voice in your head, you are most likely stressed. If you are doom scrolling, knowing that it doesn't make you feel good, and yet you are unable to stop,
Why do we doom scroll when we're stressed?
The reason we doom scroll when we are stressed is because it is a primal urge
to do
scroll.
What? To scroll?
Evolutionarily, when you and I and all of the other humans were living in tribes, there was a night watchman who would keep tabs and look out throughout the night while the tribe slept. And now we are all our own night watchmen. We scroll and scan for danger. It is a way for us to feel safe. The reason we do this is because when you are feeling a sense of stress, you are governed by your amygdala. It is what's moving your brain forward. And so when your brain is driven by the amygdala, you are thinking only about survival and self-preservation. And scanning for danger is a way you feel safe. So what do we do in our modern times? We don't have a night watchman, we scroll. It's a way for us to scan for danger, to make sure that we are safe, that nothing is happening. And then unfortunately what happens is as we are scrolling, we see the headlines and the news and social media, and these are not benign entities. They have a direct impact on our brain chemistry. Clickbait works on the biology of stress. And news consumption and media consumption has a direct impact on our brain circuitry. And so doom scrolling, I have had countless people say, I can't help myself, doc. I just don't know. I remember several years ago during an election year, and we are currently in an election year, but I remember during that election year, I had a patient who told me, and I've written about this in the 5 Resets. I had a patient who told me, I watch TV day and night. I watch the news day and night. And I thought, I laughed like, oh, that's a hyperbole. That can't be possible. And in fact, when I dug into his daily habits, his routine, he truly had his TV on day and night. It wasn't his fault. So if you hear this and you think, I don't watch the news. Of course, right? Like a lot of young people don't actually watch TV. They watch on their phones. But why is it that you are scrolling and consuming news until 2, 3 in the morning?
I don't know.
We all do it. And it's because it is your stress response. Your amygdala is driving that behavior, not you, it's your amygdala. And so when you reset your stress, get your prefrontal cortex back in control, decrease the volume of your amygdala, then you don't doom scroll as much. And we can talk about digital boundaries and a couple of other things. Another way that you may, a sneaky way that stress can come up on you is that you may have emotional eating. We all have that food, that comfort food. For me, it's chocolate cake. It's usually high-fat, high-sugar foods. It's that 11 p.m., I'm just going to grab a quick snack, a bedtime snack. We know what that does to your glucose. But the reason you feel that sense of compulsion, you've had dinner and then at like 9:30 or 10, you want to reach for that snack. There's a reason. It's called emotional eating or stress eating.
Because the amygdala is driving it.
That's right.
Why does your fight or flight or freeze response drive you to eat? How is that tied? Because it makes perfect sense to me that doom scrolling is the same thing as being on the night watch. Because if you think about your job, if you're the one that's protecting the tribe or your family, is you're standing there and you're scanning. You're looking for anything that seems out of place. You're looking for anything that's surprising, which is the exact same thing that you do when you doom scroll.
That's right.
And
you're hypervigilant.
And here's the other thing that happens is because you are constantly met with a new post or something surprising. Here you are. It's like hearing the branch snap outside the tent. What was that? And then there's another one. And then there's another one. And then there's another one. And so you're not going to go back to sleep because you keep hearing things that are keeping you in a state of needing to watch out for the tribe. Now you're sitting in modern life and you are doing that same evolutionary behavior, only you're now staring at the phone and all the branches cracking or every single little thing that's going by, which keeps you awake. Because I've often wondered, why the hell did I look at my phone at 8:30 last night? And next thing you know, I look up, it's 10:45. I've bought 3 things off of Instagram that I did not need. I've just mindlessly scrolled, and now I'm pissed off at myself because I should have gone to bed and wanted to have been in bed well over 2 hours ago. And I've spent money on things that I don't need that I now don't even remember buying. And it is this constant loop. But the way you're explaining it as your amygdala is activated, that's what's going on. And that's what's having you fall prey to this behavior. And so the solution is to reset. The solution is to deactivate the amygdala because it is chronically screwing you up. Wow.
turn down that volume. The reason you, from 8:45 till 10:45, you were experiencing something called revenge bedtime procrastination. It's something that all of us do, particularly women. When your day is not your own and you are moving in a million different directions, competing priorities, parenting and work, and all of the things that we have to do to manage our homes, it happens to all people, not just women, just parents and students. It happens to so many people. When you, again, a patient story in the 5 Resets is about a student who experienced revenge bedtime procrastination. I talked to my sleep medicine colleague and I said, what is the number one tip you can give people for better sleep? And he's told me, ask every single patient that you see or every single person you see who is struggling with sleep, what are you doing 2 hours before bedtime? So let's say you want to go to bed at 9 p.m. and you're up till midnight or 1. What are you doing 2 hours before? And case in point, you just described what people do. You are on your screen. And revenge bedtime procrastination is a manifestation, a toxic manifestation of hustle culture. When your days are not your own, the children finally fall asleep, everything is calm, your work emails have calmed down, it is 8:30 at night, and you finally have some me time. So you procrastinate bedtime. It's like a rebellious teenager. You have that sense of like, I'm not going to bed at 9. I haven't even had any time for myself. I'm going to stay up. And then you stay up and you make bad choices and you buy different things or you watch, you binge watch TV. Again, a little bit of this is healthy. It's called hedonic happiness. We can talk about that later. A little bit of this is healthy. But when it becomes chronic and ongoing, and then you notice that you're going to bed every night at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're unable to get good rest, and you wake up tired, and the next day you say, you know what, I am going to go to bed early. And then the same thing happens night after frustrating night. There was a study that found that it's not about knowledge and action. Every single person who was engaging in this revenge bedtime procrastination knew that they should go to bed early. That wasn't the issue. It's not that behaviors change because you know better. It's behaviors only change when you do better. You talk about this all the time, but the actual science showed that this is not a gap in knowledge. Everyone knows that early bedtime is important. It's a manifestation of hustle culture because even in spite of knowing that, hey, an early night would do me well, you still say, no, I'm not going to because I have had a crappy day and I'm not going to have a crappy day. Go into my night. I'm going to have a little bit of me time. So that's that.
I want you to imagine that you and your friend Mel Robbins are going to walk into a Dr. Aditi's office. What are the things that you would ask us? Like, can you just kind of, for the person listening and me, if we were coming to talk to you about stress, how do you assess how stressed out we are?
What a beautiful question. The first premise I use when I see a patient is to recognize that stress isn't this vague, mythical creature that's just all around us and ungraspable. That stress is something that can be measured, quantified, monitored, and ultimately overcome. So just putting borders around your stress and burnout. What is it? Why are you feeling it? And giving it a number. So the first thing I offer every patient is a stress quiz. And then you get your stress score.
Okay.
And then you start your various interventions. And then you check your score again in a month and say, hey, did my score go up or down, or is it the same? And that is a way that you can actually measure your stress. The second important piece in that interview process of figuring out what are the big areas of life that people are struggling with, what I have found in my research with patients, in the science, is that there's kind of 5 main areas.
Okay.
Sleep is a big one, and this is in no particular order. Sleep, movement, diet, media use, and your connection with others, your sense of community. And so those are the 5 areas that I really dig into when I'm speaking to someone. And it's about making small, very, very small, smaller than you think, changes in your everyday life so that you can get to a better place. But unless that action happens, it's hard to get there. And so this helps you, that inventory helps you figure out and assess where you are in that moment.
Well, I think that I just struggled for so long because I didn't know. I am excited to continue telling you the story about what happened when our daughter was invited to sing her new single Pastime at Carnegie Hall and the 4 life lessons that I learned on that random night in New York City. I've already shared lesson number 1, where we talked about using 4 simple words. It's not that deep. to unhook yourself emotionally when you start to feel upset that someone that you love is not seizing an opportunity or moving forward and working toward what they want. And you can also use, it's not that deep, to unhook yourself when you're the one that's paralyzed, to push yourself through the fear. So now that you're moving, let's keep the story moving. And where the story picks up is that she replies to the email. And now we're going to fast forward 7 days to the day of the piano recital at Carnegie Hall. And on the day of the recital, it's a Friday, I'm driving down from Vermont, and Kendall is flown in the night before, and she's staying with some friends from college in New York City. And as I'm about to get to the city, she calls me. It's like around 2:30, and she says, "Hey, Mom, will you pick me up down in the West Village at my friend's apartment and then drive me up to Carnegie Hall? I just think it would be so cool to see you." And I was really excited about this because I just assumed I wasn't going to see her until after her performance because I didn't want to stress her out. But I was like, yeah, I can pick you up. We got plenty of time. And she reminded me that her call time at Carnegie Hall was 4:15 and the sound check was going to happen at 5:30. So plenty of time. And honestly, I was just absolutely thrilled. So I'm driving down the West Side Highway. I pull up to the apartment. She jumps in the car. We brace each other. It was so exciting. And what immediately struck me was she was just cool as a cucumber. And we were talking up a storm, and she had had a great night the night before, and we're driving uptown, and this song comes on that she loves, and she grabbed my hand and she started to cry, and she's like, "I just can't believe this is happening." And I'm like, "I can't believe it's happening either." And so I was just thrilled to be in the moment. And honestly, to have a little bit of time with her before the show began and before some of our family and friends started to arrive in town to see her perform. And I had booked a hotel that was next door to Carnegie Hall. Like, I'm talking, the building is next door to Carnegie Hall. So we pulled up to the hotel at 3:45. Plenty of time, right? We drop our bags at the hotel. We walk into the lobby and boom, her grandmother was standing there. Her grandmother had flown in from Florida to surprise Kendall. There's crying and squeals and hugs. And now, wow. Game on. Excitement is really building. It's starting to feel real. You know what I mean? Like, this is actually happening. So we get into the elevator, and it's me and it's her grandma, JJ, and JJ's boyfriend, John. And so we're going up, the four of us, and I'm starting to feel Kendall's pre-performance anxiety kicking in. How do I know? Because I can spot the way that I feel in these moments where I'm about to do something big. She's darting around the room. She's getting frustrated. She can't find her water. She can't find her this. She can't find her lipstick. She can't find her pants. She's got the wrong pants. And she's starting to get, short. Like, people are like, "Well, can I help you?" "No, you can't help me. I can find," like, so you've been in that situation with people that you love, right? So now it's 4 p.m. and she starts going, "We got to go. We got to go. We got to go." And she has shoved all these clothes in her bag because she doesn't know what she wants to wear. "We got to go. We got to go." And I'm trying to calm her down and reassure her. Wrong thing to do. I'm like, "We got time, honey. Carnegie Hall is right next door. I've seen the entrance to the stage, the backstage door. It's literally 90 seconds from here. I saw the security guard. I saw the metal detector. I checked it out. We were going to go through it. Easy peasy." I don't even think she heard me. Like, she's now in that state where she's ramped up. So we get into the elevator. Now, mind you, we now have an 86-year-old grandmother and her 85-year-old boyfriend tagging along. And so I'm starting to realize, okay, the last thing Kendall probably wants right now is an entourage. And so I start saying, "Hey, listen, we don't need to come with you to sound check. Seriously. Like, if you just want to go and deal with this yourself, I will go hang out." And she grabs my arm and says, "No, Mom, I really want you to be there." So I say, okay. And so her grandmother's like, "Okay, well, we'll just walk you to the door." So we all head out to the hotel. We turn to the right. I see the stage door. It's open right on 56th Street. And I point and I say, "Honey, it's right there." And she goes, "No, it's not. No, it's not. You don't have the information. I have the information. It's on another street. I have the information. Come on, we're going to be late. We're going to be late. I hate being late." And she takes a right and cuts through the building between the hotel and Carnegie Hall and speed walks through the lobby in the wrong direction. And I'm trying to tell her grandmother, "Okay, you guys go. I'm going to go catch up with her." Anxiety is now in full charge. She is speed walking like she's at the Olympic speed walking finals. And I am now running after her, and she's pumping her arms, and now she's out the lobby and taking a left on 57th Street. I don't even see her anymore. So I'm running through the lobby. I get out the building. By now she's at the corner, and you can tell she's upset. The scarf is flying. She's like, where is it? And I'm like, it's back there. It's back there. And she darts around the thing. And I'm like, we got time. And you can just feel it. And none of the doors are open. And so as she goes to every door at Carnegie Hall and kind of grabs them, they're not opening. And so that's increasing the thing. And so I start to break into a light jog, and I round the corner on 57th and 6th and cut down 6th in the front of Carnegie Hall. And then I go back down 56th to the door that's right next to our hotel. We have basically sprinted around a New York City block to arrive almost exactly where we were when we walked out of the hotel. And she keeps saying, I hate being late. I hate being late. I hate being late. I'm like, we're still on time. We're still on time. It is 4:13. We should have been 20 minutes early. I'm like, you're right. But we're okay. We go through the metal detector. She asks for directions. The security guards are wonderful. They say, you got to go up to the second floor. She is still repeating in a huff, I hate being late. I hate being late. I hate being late. We round the corner. We hit the up arrow on the elevator. Looking at the watch. It's okay. It's just 4:15 right now. See, I'm late. We're in the building. And so now we're starting to bicker. The elevator doors open up. We race in. She punches the 2 so we can go up to the second floor where she's supposed to go meet all the other musicians. The elevator doors close as she's going, come on. And the elevator goes down. It's going to the basement instead of the second floor. And as that elevator dropped, my heart began to sink, and it's just the 2 of us in there. And Kendall drops her head and puts her hands over her face, and then she pulls her hands by her side with 2 fists and lets out this blood-curdling scream. I mean, I was shocked. Here I thought she was about to start sobbing. Are you kidding? Talk about a badass move. I mean, how often do you have these moments where you are so pent up with emotion that you are about to burst into tears? Or you just stuff it down and you never release it? I mean, this was a primal scream. This was like a cathartic moment where she released everything that had been building up probably for a week since she got that first email, right? This was not a scream of weakness. This was a frickin' lioness roar. And what I loved about it, she didn't care that I was in there. She didn't care what I was thinking. She didn't care who might hear her. What if you gave yourself permission to do that? To release the tension? To just let it frickin' rip, to just and scream with all your might. To stop holding it in. To stop trying to hold it together. Maybe you're sitting there in the front seat of your car. Just let it scream. I would scream right now, but it would really hurt your ears if you have earbuds in. So I'm not going to do that. But you could walk into a bathroom stall. You could pick up a throw pillow if one of the kids is sleeping or taking a nap. You don't want to wake them up. Just walk out the front door and stand in your front yard and just scream it out. Hit the release valve. That's lesson number 2. The power of a good scream. Wouldn't it feel so good if you gave yourself permission to just release it all? I mean, Kendall's scream echoed through the elevator shaft. It was like the elevator was shaking, and it not only broke all the tension for her, I'll tell you what, It also sounded the alarm, because let me tell you what happened. The second she let out that scream and her fists were by her side, she was like, "Ah!" As soon as she was done screaming, it was like, boom, she was back in control, like it never happened. And it was kind of funny, because what actually did happen is all of a sudden we hit the basement and the doors open. And there's literally a dude who has clearly run toward the elevator. He's out of breath. He's heard the scream, because he's like, "Are you okay? I heard someone scream." And she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I just had a moment. Like I just, needed to just scream. You know how you need to scream sometimes?" And he was amazing. He laughed and he was like, "Oh, I totally get it. Happens all the time in here." He got on the elevator with us, rode up to the main floor, got out on the main floor. So we're still not to the second floor. But because she had screamed, she was no longer stressed out. She was in her power. It turns out there's a lot of research on how therapeutic screaming can be. And it was such a powerful moment. And researchers speculate as to why. See, after you scream like with intention like that, the relief that you feel after a big scream or a good cry is because there's this huge rush of endorphins and peptides produced by the pituitary gland and your central nervous system. And they act on your brain's receptors. It increases like the pleasure center, like maybe that's where the control comes from. It reduces pain and stress, and it increases strength. Now, this comes from Dr. Brian Bruno, who's the medical director at Mid-City TMS, a New York City-based medical center that's focused on treating depression, and he wrote this big article about it. Dr. Bruno says that as you scream, your body becomes more alert, and you release tension in the muscles that are caused by bottled up emotions. I mean, screaming literally gives voice to your emotions and transforms that feeling that can paralyze you and keep you like just stuck from something that's silent and creating this inner tension to something that you physically feel and hear and process. It allows you to release the emotion and take control. That's exactly what I witnessed in the elevator. Because as the elevator started to rise from the lobby up to the second floor, and we got closer to the second floor, and you could hear the piano playing in the rehearsal rooms, the doors of the elevator opened to the second floor. And there we were, with all the performers. And the first person that was there to greet us, her buddy Phil. He was waiting like a warm hug. Everything in that moment seemed to reset. And you could feel that things were different, because they were. Don't underestimate the power of a good scream. I found all kinds of amazing research on the impact that plants can have on your well-being and your mental health and your concentration, and also the impact of gardening itself. And I cannot wait to tell you about this crazy study that was done with plants, because this study connects to something that Dr. Adam Alter, professor from NYU, he was on the show recently, and we were talking all about the brain and happiness. And if you didn't hear that episode, no problem, always linked in the show notes if you want to go deeper. But he did this kind of bit about the research that's been done on the impact of getting out in nature and how it impacts your brain and can make you happier and help you lower your stress. And so I want you to listen to Professor Adam Alter on the Mel Robbins podcast, talking about the research and how being in nature improves happiness and lowers stress.
The thing about nature is that apart from actually being asleep, being in a natural environment is replenishing. It basically turns that dial upside down, and so your energy starts to climb again. So it gives you back a lot of what is sapped by that very focused attention. Because when you're in a natural environment, your attention is still grabbed by things. You might hear a bird, you might hear the running water, you might look at trees, whatever it might be, looking at the ocean. But that kind of less focused attention is really restorative. And there's actually a whole body of research called attention restoration therapy that focuses on exactly this idea that being in natural environments is one of the best forms of medicine we have. I think one really useful thing, and why nature is so great, is because it's timeless. That I think one way to measure how well you're living is, are you spending at least some of your day in an environment that is timeless, that is not attached and tethered to the here and now, that is not about the latest screen, the latest device, the latest tech, the latest gadget. So when you are sitting in a forest, you could have been doing that 1,000 years ago and seeing exactly the same thing. And I think there's some value to living at least part of our lives every day in an environment that is timeless.
Don't you just love that? Running water, nature, holy cow. No wonder I'm a happier person now that I live in Vermont and I'm around nature all the time. But you may not be around nature all the time. So if you can't get outside, don't you worry. Dr. Alter has got you covered, because in that episode, he also talked about how just having the presence of nature near you, like a plant in your apartment, or being able to see a tree outside your window, how that alone can impact you. So just listen to what Dr. Alter said about that research.
If you're in an apartment in a big urban environment and you don't have that option, even little trees, little plants that you have in the apartment, the sound of a little fountain that you have with running water, that stands in for that experience too, is just spend, say, 5 minutes a day doing absolutely nothing but taking in, drinking in that natural environment, even if it's a tiny one in your apartment. If you can get out, all the better, but it's very important to do that, I think, as a sort of daily practice.
I think that's so cool that these simple things can become a daily practice. That's why I'm so excited about this, because it's so accessible. It's right in front of your face. And it's not just Dr. Alter who's doing this research. There's a study that I found from researchers in the UK where they looked at plants in your home. And simply having plants in your home or near you can increase your concentration by up to 20%. So what does that mean? It means this. If you work from home, let's say you have a little desk at home or a place where you're trying to get things done, researchers say put a plant on the desk or on the counter nearby you. Why? They want it near you in a place where you're trying to focus. And the research shows that simply having that plant near you, like on your desk, near you where you're working, can boost your concentration by 20%. Now, when I read this, I was kind of like, why? Why the hell would a plant boost my concentration? Well, the researchers dug into why, and they believe it's because of two reasons. Check this out. Number one, plants improve air quality because they reduce CO2 levels. And I want to explain why this matters when it comes to concentration and focus. So there was this really interesting study done at Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Researchers did this massive study about productivity and focus at work. And they had people in 6 different countries. So this study included the UK, the US, China, India, Mexico, Thailand. They had people at work sit near air quality monitors. And the air quality monitors were detecting when the CO2 levels went higher. And when the CO2 levels would shoot higher, the researchers would make the folks at work perform tests that measure things like memory, how fast your brain is working, how well you can do certain tasks. Now check this out. This is where it gets really interesting. This global study found that higher CO2 levels in an office has significant impact on an employee's cognitive functioning, including lowering your response time, interfering with your ability to focus, and it also affects your productivity. This is a very real thing. In fact, this is so real that when we first opened our studios in Boston, where we tape a lot of the expert interviews for this podcast, we started noticing that after we were in the studio and the experts and I were talking for 90 minutes, I could literally feel my energy leave my body. My focus was starting to decline. The room was stuffy. And it wasn't the conversation. It was literally as if there was like some whoosh, gas being poured into the room. So we put in a CO2 monitor. Holy cow. Simply by being in a room where we're doing a lot of talking because of the interviewing, the CO2 levels were spiking. And that was impacting focus and brain processing. Isn't that crazy? So we had to take steps to improve the circulation in the room. We put in an air filter. We also started opening up windows in between interviews. And now that I've learned about this research, you better believe Mel Robbins is bringing in the plants, and we are putting it in the studio because we clearly need help with the CO2, and so do you. This is legit a really cool thing you can do for yourself. Put a plant on your desk, help with the CO2, and let's get that focus going. I think we all know a number of people in our lives that blow the candle out with a fire hose, that they get triggered and they completely tantrum.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what is it like and how can you, in a healthy way, be in a relationship with somebody who is addicted to drama.
Yeah. Because most of us know someone who is addicted to drama. It's important to recognize that a stress response, so someone who's in a chronic stress response, like happens in addiction to drama, is that it's contagious. And so let's say I was pretty nervous when I saw you today. I still am a little nervous.
You are?
Yes. Oh my God,
Why?
Mel. I don't know.
You're great.
You're great. And
Thank
it's
you.
intimidating.
Oh, please.
And someone in this room, or even you, might start to pick it up on a level you wouldn't recognize.
Okay.
Yeah, so subconsciously.
Yep.
Your physiology is responding to my physiology. That's evolutionarily designed. You know, I'm running into the house or into the studio because I just got chased by a snake. And you don't even have to know what's chasing me. Your physiology is going to mirror mine in preparation to be responsive.
I would imagine this is even faster and more addictive in a family.
Yes, because you register the cues quicker.
I was shopping with our daughter this weekend, and it happened to us.
Yeah?
Yeah. She's stressed about, life after college.
Yeah.
And so she's already baseline, you can tell, starting to rev herself up, to use the language of drama. We are out shopping, and she comes out of this dressing room, and she's got on a pair of motorcycle boots. And she's like, "What do you think?" And I said, "Those look just like the ones that I bought you 5 years ago." And she goes, "Well, I don't have those anymore." And the energy shifts.
Yeah.
And I immediately feel the drama.
Yep.
And she then spins on her heels and stomps back into the thing. And then I feel myself rev up because I'm thinking, is she pissed at me because I'm not buying her a pair of boots? And now I'm tense.
Yeah.
And it escalated from there.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I'm realizing that the dynamic that you've described of somebody having that flood of emotion and then blowing out the candle with a fire hose and stomping into a dressing room, she's feeling something deep in the moment, which is painful, which is, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, and I'm afraid I'm not going to figure it out. Yeah. And these surface level fights are her seeking that connection with me.
Yeah. She might not be able to be in contact with it.
It's too painful.
It's too painful. So what do? We distract ourselves from that pain by creating more sensation.
Well, so how do you deal with somebody who's constantly like this?
Yeah. So for one, recognize what's happening in your own body.
Okay.
So the fact that you had that experience with your daughter, you started getting revved up from her revving.
Yes.
So you got to find your anchor, find your ground, shake it off.
Oh my God. And then you don't want to know what I did?
What'd you do?
Oh my God. I texted somebody while she was in the dressing room.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't remember what I was responding to a text. And I'm like, and I'm really like just deep breathing and using the let them theory because Kendall is in a mood. And then all of a sudden, Kendall responds back because she was in the group chat and just said, I'm in this group chat with you and Lynn. And then I wrote back, touche, and you are in a mood. What do you need?
And did that work?
We stayed in the drama cycle.
Yeah.
Kind of for the rest of the day.
Yeah. It does.
And then the next morning, I texted her and said, I'm out here for 2 days. I really want to have today go well.
Yeah.
What do you need from me? And she said, well, why don't we talk? And then we get in the car, and in the safety of the car, there's something about, I think, talking to somebody when you're side by side
Yes.
versus looking them in the eye. She just burst into tears.
Mm.
And she's like, you think I have it all figured out? I don't. Like, I'm afraid I'm not going to make it. I don't know what to do. I don't even know why I'm out here. I don't know how to get into it. Like, and it all came pouring out. And all I did was, and then I just apologized. And I said, I'm really sorry. You're right.
Yeah.
I look at you and see an accomplished, put together, confident young woman who is doing the work. I don't ask you if you're okay because I assume you are, and I'm sorry.
Wow.
It was a deep level of fear and pain.
Yeah.
That a lot of us experience when we're going through a major life change, which she is. Those first years out of college or out of high school or out of a relationship or out of a marriage are scary as you're finding your way. And I forget that.
Yeah.
And so I can see that in that example that I just lived in the last 48 hours, the drama escalated because she didn't know how to talk about the painful thing, which is I'm lonely out here and I feel lost and I don't know if I'm going to make it in this big world as a singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
And that's a lot. And so instead we started fighting about the motorcycle boots, and that led us to this existential, beautiful conversation.
It's such a prime example of how this little thing over here that's blown so out of proportion, that's so disproportionate to what's actually underneath the hood.
Yeah.
And if we can get underneath the hood, the drama often like settles, it metabolizes because
how do we
can
do
get
that, Dr. Scott?
Yeah.
Come on. No, seriously, because
Yeah.
I think, like, I see this everywhere.
Yeah.
I see the fact that when my parents came to visit me in Vermont,
Yeah.
it's the first time they've visited us since we moved there 3 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
And they came, it was a beautiful visit, but as soon as my parents were leaving, my mom started to go, well, I guess we'll do Thanksgiving in Florida, when the plan had been for all of us, an extended family, to come. And she started just saying it and saying it and saying it and saying it.
Yeah.
And the old me would have gotten pissed off. I would have felt controlled. I would have been angry about the campaigning to change a plan.
Yep.
And I would have felt offended when she said, well, you and your brother can get together. The fact that I'm going to Florida doesn't mean that, you can't do what you're doing. All I've ever said is I want our family to do Thanksgiving together. And so, like, I see
She
you
created a bind in that moment.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so here's the thing, though. When I really unhooked myself and I went under the hood, here's what I thought. When was the last time that we were all together? When was the last time we actually did all travel to them? And it was quite a while ago. And so when I didn't get into the drama cycle and I just took a deep breath and I was like, well, what's actually going on under here?
That's exactly the question that needs to be asked, Mel.
Okay, so that's the technique. If you're dealing with the friend that texts you, I see you're in town. Oh, now it's too late. We're not getting together. Or the fight about shopping, or the...
Yeah. Part of it is we can use like functional reframes. So we go, what do we imagine the story underneath their story, the feelings underneath their story? What is the unspoken needs that are actually present? And that takes a fair amount of empathy, but it's a skill set for ourselves too. It's like, so we don't get involved in their drama cycle.
Okay.
That's part of a boundary.
Okay.
So, again, recognizing what's happening in your own body, settling yourself. Do not attempt to take them off the rolling hill.
Okay.
That is never going to work. It's like, hey, what's going on with you?
Yes.
That just is a fucking log on their fire.
Yes.
You are squeezing.
So do you just quietly put your hand on your heart and take a breath and literally go, let them.
Yeah.
Let them spiral. Let them blow the candle out with the fire hose.
Yep. Sometimes you have to let them run their cycle.
Okay.
So that you can then enter in. And usually the cycle ends with a collapse in the drama cycle.
Well, a lot of times what I saw from the listeners that wrote in is that there's the eruption.
Yeah.
And then there's the silent treatment. Because the person doesn't know or doesn't want to or isn't emotionally mature enough to repair the situation. So what do you do when you get the eruption and then the ice silent treatment or the pretending like nothing ever even happened?
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Go talk to a friend, a therapist, to validate your experience.
Okay.
Don't rely on their sense of reality to match yours. The more you try to put that pressure on yourself or them to have that mutual reality, the more challenging you will find it to be in your own sense of peace. The Venn diagram of where the overlap of realities happen is small in those moments.
Okay.
Because they are pulling in the past and the future as opposed to the present.
What's helped me a lot is understanding that when somebody does that, they are having an experience in their bodies where they're experiencing some wave of emotion that they literally can't tolerate it.
Yep.
So they puke it out at you.
Yep. That you become the relationships become the depository for the emotions.
So is the reason why this is an addiction is because emotional outbursts or creating this revved up state in your body or keeping yourself in a loop where you're like, nobody gets me, nobody loves me, nobody takes care of me. It's an addiction because why is it an addiction? Like, how is it classified as an addiction, Dr. Scott?
So addiction typically has at least 5 characteristics to it, including you build up a tolerance level to it. You have withdrawal symptoms. You don't care about the social consequences of the action or the behavior. It occupies a lot of your energy and attention. And all of these things really fit into an addiction of drama. An example of tolerance is you need more to feel more. You need more to get drunk. And the same is true with stress, that we start to need more stress or more of anything in that regard to feel more. So I used to get confused with, I thought I was super capable of dealing with stress. I just built up a tolerance level for it, which meant that I needed more overscheduling. I needed to be in more grad programs at the same time. I needed more intense relationships to get that high, to get that hit. That then gives me a sensation of feeling alive. It gives me a sense of energy. It gives me that pain relief. I needed more to feel more. So that's tolerance.
Yep.
Withdrawal symptoms shows up as things like anxiety and boredom. It's part of the collapse. It's like, oh, I'm so bored. And we start getting that itch. That itch of like, I got to do something. Got to go get a tattoo. Or I don't know what it is, but I feel like that itch gets met if I get into a little friction with a friend, or I go watch the news, or I go doom scrolling. Something feels stimulating, takes me out of that boredom, and more importantly, out of the anxiety. Because at the base of, or the bottom of the anxiety is all the things I am trying to avoid. All the feelings that have been tucked down or haven't had the space-time permission support to process.
Well, what's interesting about what you're saying is if you're bored, you could pick up a book of Mary Oliver poems.
As I often do.
You could pick up a book of like fabulous fiction.
Yeah.
But if what you stimulate boredom with is doom scrolling or turning on some crime junkie thing. I remember when we had the extraordinary Dr. Tama Bryant on the podcast, and she said something that really struck a nerve and has gone crazy viral. And it's this idea of, if you have trauma in your background, you really want to examine why you watch these crime shows or these horror shows or these violent entertainment shows at night. And she was saying that is because it's familiar to you.
I would go a little further. It's familiar, so we're in the reenactment pattern, but what does that do for you?
What does it do for you? I don't know.
It goes back to the 3 things. It gives you pain relief, it gives you distraction, and it gives you energy.
How does it give you pain relief? I still don't understand that.
So we have 2 main natural pain relievers in our body. We get it from connection
Yeah.
part, and we get it from stress. So let's
How
say,
is stress a pain reliever? Because I hear the word stress and I'm like, that's pain.
so it's in preparation for what we do as part of a stress response. You're going to get into a fight. You already need the pain relief, the cascade of hormones that gives you the pain relief in preparation to deal with and adapt to the circumstances. So also in love, it releases the hormones that then blocks the pain. It essentially gives us a distraction technique.
Gotcha. So you're basically feet up on the couch. You're watching, some sort of like dramatic, violent kind of thing. You're calling it entertainment.
Calling it whatever you want.
Yeah, and the stress is rising, but because you're distracted and the stress is flooding your body, it relieves you of that boredom and of the restlessness that you felt, which made you not want to sit with a book of poems or historical fiction.
Yeah. What is it that we're not attending to in ourselves when we're attending to something on the outside that is stressful?
I want to further break this down because I think it's really important what you just taught us.
Okay.
So if I were still in a space in my life where I was frustrated with my inability to control my emotions, that used to be me.
Yeah, me too.
Outbursts, nasty tone of voice, unloading on my family when I had a stressful day at work, venting, all of it. If you had told me to just take in my self-awareness, I would have thought for a second, okay, I'm taking in that I am not in control of my emotions, and I'm taking in that I want to change this, and that's a good thing. And a millisecond later, I would go, Dr. Scott, that's not enough. What do I need to do? And
Mel, are you revving yourself up out of the contact with yourself?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And so even the reaction that, well, that's not going to work, is you revving up those old negative pathways.
Yes.
Holy shit. Okay.
It's you staying out of relationship with yourself at any cost, including blaming me or creating a narrative or whatever other form of revving you use to stay out of relationship with what feels vulnerable.
How long do I have to just sit with it before I'm doing something else? Like that's seriously.
We build up a tolerance. We titrate it.
Okay.
So maybe it's a second.
Okay.
Maybe it's literally 1 second, and then we build it up to 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It doesn't have to all be at once.
What's a good way to ask for help?
So we build awareness, we build acceptance, and in that acceptance or that validation is also a bit of starting to open up to be seen. Because underlying the explosion is something that isn't being seen. So I don't feel like anyone's got my back in the family. I don't feel like anyone helps me clean. So I feel all alone. And that reminds me of ...
Being
my
5,
past when I didn't get picked up from soccer practice.
Thanks for that. Okay.
Yeah, just rubbing it on in. And so we're starting to build enough space between the reflexive response, because it goes like that, right? It's in the blink of an eye when we get into the drama cycle. So we start to recognize, okay, can I build enough space between when I start to rev and when I go into that total catharsis, where I blow up like a volcano?
And then you're in a shame cycle, and then you're apologizing.
Then you're in a shame cycle.
I lived that for so long, and one of the things that helped me a lot, and it's a very hard way to ask for help, but I at one point sat with my family and just said, I don't want to be like this. And I need your help. I need you to tell me when my tone of voice is demeaning. I need you to tell me when I am venting, because it's gotten to be such a lever that I pull reflexively. And what was interesting is that the more they would be like, Mom, watch your tone, the more I would then have to practice feeling the engine rev up. But here's what happened that was really interesting, is that it forced me, when I no longer could get away with unloading my stress and drama on my family,
Yeah.
it forced me to focus on the reality that I was profoundly overwhelmed at work
Yeah.
and had not prioritized building an exceptional team.
Yeah. Mm.
And I felt very alone, and I felt unseen, and I felt like nobody got it.
Yeah.
And the drama
Yeah.
was keeping me trapped in a broken system in my own business and in communicating with my family. And so I think what ultimately happens when you have the courage to look at where you're revving yourself up,
Yeah.
or where you're in this cycle of picking fights or exploding on people, and then you know it's not working.
Yep.
I think that there's the potential that this unravels something incredibly beautiful and deep that you didn't even realize was the issue in the first place.
Absolutely.
How does stress cause bloating in your gut?
Oh, God. Don't you realize that the more I read about it, the more I learn about stress, because we didn't learn so much about it in medical school. We thought of stress as kind of just a part of life, right? Now we're realizing that it causes everything, like literally can cause anything bad can come from stress. When you're stressed, you are in a emergency survival mode. And people always equate it to kind of like, you're getting chased by a tiger, and you don't really care about taking care of your gut. You don't really care about balancing your hormones. Like, you're focused on how do I survive in the next minute?
Yes.
And unfortunately for us, this is happening more and more. Our news media are designed to create a stress response. Sitting in front of a computer all day and getting emails are designed to trigger the stress response. Social media is designed. So we're living in this world that's actually trying to tap in to our stress response all the time. And it's our responsibility to actually manage all that and put ourselves into an enjoyment, into a relaxing state, because everything else is designed to put us in a stress state, which is going away from digestion, moving away from hormone balance, moving away from repair, and just focusing on surviving the next minute.
So are you saying that when you're on edge or you're stressed out, that your nervous system interferes with your gut's ability to properly digest food and to stay in a balance in terms of your gut bacteria?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. When your body is focused on the task at hand, say it's an emergency situation, all of the blood flow is going to your brain away from your gut. It's going to your big muscles, right? It's ready to run. We're ready to, and we notice it. I don't know if you notice it, but your heart starts beating faster.
Mm-hmm.
Your blood starts flowing. Your eyes start to dilate because your body's ready to fight whatever this thing is. And a lot of times we're actively in that state, and we have to work to take ourselves out of that state and really relax so that our digestion can work properly, so that we can poop, so we can, eat food and not have acid reflux all of a sudden. Those are all things that happen from being chronically stressed. And like I said, Mel, it's not our fault. We live in a world that's designed to keep us in the stressed state. Because that's what gets your attention. If you open a headline and it immediately causes you to have fear and stress, you're going to pay attention to it.
Right.
And spend more time clicking it. And so that's what works on social media or news media. And so we're always, and it's good to, obviously know real live world events, but it's also good to learn how to manage your body so that we can actually be in a state of rest and digest, which is the opposite of that stress mode.
You mentioned just there the kind of acid reflux stuff. Can you just briefly explain how a state of being bloated or inflamed or just living with really unhappy gut bacteria, what other issues can that create in your life beyond just feeling like you have a food baby and you're uncomfortable in your body?
Oh God, the list is just endless. We're learning now that breast cancer is related to gut microbiome. We're learning so cancers, we're heart disease, depression. I mean, you name it, and it is related to poor gut health. So, what I like to think about it is that it's not this brain, and it's not just gut. It's this like brain gut axis that's modulating our hormones, our immune system. And so all of the things that we want in our life, like healthy aging, come from improving that gut bacteria and the hormones that go with it, because we don't want to say anti-age, right? We want successful aging. So it's like not just the bloating in the short term, but we're talking, do you want to live a long, healthy life? Do you want to have a happy life? Do you want to you got to keep these bacteria happy. You got to keep them functioning. They have to be talking to your brain and saying, we're doing good here. We're having a good time. And that's when things feel really good in your body.
I'm glad that you said that, because selfishly, I reached out to you because my pants were tight and I felt like I had a food baby and I was really just uncomfortable and felt very gassy. And I thought, I'm not the only one that feels this way. And I bet Dr. Shaw can help me reset my gut. But the fact that you put this in a larger context, that gut health is mental health, gut health is physical health, and that we can't see what's going on in your gut. But if you don't take your gut seriously and you don't learn how to make your gut bacteria happy, it's not about whether or not your pants fit. This has so many larger implications for your overall health. And, don't worry for you if you tuned in because you want to hear the 5-day reset for bloating. We're getting there. But I think it's important to elevate this too, because you're saying that you have to pay attention to this if you want to live a long and healthy and vibrant life, because your gut informs everything about your mood, about the way your brain is functioning, and you can start to literally heal from the inside out if you pay attention to this. I mean, that's basically what you're saying, right?
Absolutely. Mel, the sad thing is that because this is so unknown to everybody, like everybody listening right now is in on this, right? You're in on this. I'm in on this. Everybody listening today. But most of the world, the developed world, does not understand this. And we are seeing 1 in 7 people this year, it came out in a study, 1 in 7 people feel bloating at least once a week. We found out that 98% of people don't eat enough food for their gut bacteria, which is fiber, right? Like healthy foods, real vegetables and fruits. There's only 2% of Americans that are actually eating food that is keeping their gut bacteria happy. Like it's crazy. And then exercise. We all know that exercise is an issue for all of the modern world. So all this morning routine that we're talking about, like the fasting, the fitness, and the food, the fiber fermented food, this itself has the ability, the potential to help you in so many more ways than just bloating. It's, can make you happier, help you successfully age, help with your hormonal transition if you're in menopause or pregnancy. So there's so much potential out there.
Every single time you're procrastinating, it's being triggered by stress. See, that's the crazy thing about procrastination. It has nothing to do with what you need to do. Procrastination, defined in the dictionary, is avoiding or putting something off, delaying it. But when you look at the research, and we're going to dig into that in a minute, the way that researchers define procrastination is that you are avoiding stress. That's what you're avoiding. You're not avoiding the application. You're not avoiding the illustration. You blow off things that take brain power because you are trying to avoid stress. Procrastination is the attempt to feel better in this moment. And strangely, what you're about to learn is that when I walk you through this 3-step research-backed technique that you're going to use every single time that you catch yourself procrastinating, is that procrastination is triggered by stress. That's what it's about. I'm going to say that again. Procrastination is a habit that you have learned and that you repeat whenever you feel stressed. And this comes from research from Dr. Timothy Peichel at Carleton University. His definition of procrastination is this: a subconscious desire to feel good right now. And he shares that procrastination, it's just all about stress. And I'm going to unpack this for you, because when you first hear that, wait, procrastination is a subconscious desire to feel good right now? How the heck does that make sense? I mean, Viddy really wants to draw, Mel. So wouldn't it make sense that she'd feel good if she were drawing? Sort of. Sort of. And I'm going to explain this. It makes sense intellectually, but when I unpack how stress is triggering you to stop doing something that you care about or that you need to do, this is all going to be like, holy cow, why didn't I hear this sooner? So I'm going to give you an example, but I want you to understand that that stress that is triggering you to procrastinate, it could be something going on in your life right now, or it could be deep-seated stress, like childhood trauma. It could be anxiety or depression or something in your past that you haven't dealt with, a situation that you're worried about that's completely unrelated to work or to the things that you need to do. It might just be the relentless pressure and stress that you feel because you are so hard on yourself. I mean, you haven't even met Viddy, and you can hear in her voice. The woman beats herself up all day long. Talk about stressful. And that's why I'm so excited to be able to teach this to you today. It's why I love this topic so much, because when we talk about procrastination, we're not talking about getting shit done. You're going to get shit done as a byproduct. But when you truly understand the research and the topic of procrastination, it's about self-awareness, stress management, and being effective and productive on the things that matter to you. It's about feeling a sense of control and agency in your life. So let's really unpack what it means when I say that your habit of procrastinating is triggered by the stress in your life. Stop and think for a minute. What is stressing you out right now? You know, I just kind of talked about the breadbasket, getting older, that kind of stuff. But let me stop and think, I'm stressing about the fact that my parents are getting older. And I haven't seen them in a while. I'm going to go see them in a week, and it's making me realize, my God, we have not seen each other. And I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. It stresses me out. Maybe the same is true for you. Or maybe your mom and dad, their health is failing, and it's really upsetting you. Or perhaps like I used to have profound financial stress, like just crushing, relentless financial stress. Always on my mind, always worried about it. Or your best friends are going through a divorce. Maybe that's something that's on your mind and it's really bothering you and you don't know what to do about it. And so here you are in your day-to-day life. You got this big thing that is on your mind. You carry it around like a backpack of stress. You're thinking about it all the time. Maybe it's even just in your subconscious, just grinding away at you. You haven't been working on the dissertation. Oh my God, I need to work on that thing. And why am I not getting to it? And oh my God, I need to do this. And so here you go. And like Viddy, you sit down and there's something you need to do. Maybe you have to work on your portfolio. Maybe you got to make a few sales calls. Maybe you need to sort through all of those medical bills and figure out like how to get compensated and reimbursed from insurance. Talk about like something that requires concentration. Maybe you're working on your business plan. Maybe it's something you're really excited about. You're working on the next chapter of your book. But as you sit there and you start to do the work, here's what's interesting. You need to concentrate, don't you? Like doing that thing requires a bit of focus. It requires your prefrontal cortex to engage. You've been learning all about this on the Mel Robbins podcast. But you got the stress backpack on your back. You got all of this stuff ruminating through you. And it might not be something that is present of mind. It might not be like maybe all your kids are doing fine today. And so you're not worried about, you can't put your finger on it. Your stress backpack might be the fact that you're still living with the effects of childhood trauma. And so when you walk into work and you sit down, or you've got a list of phone calls you need to make, or you've got a report you need to finish, or you've got something you need to edit, and that's going to require you to concentrate, your brain literally looks at you and is like, excuse me? You want me to do an illustration right now? You want me to make a phone call to a stranger and try to sell them some of this stuff right now? Have you not seen that I have a stress backpack on? You want me to focus on 15 phone calls when I've been worried about how I'm going to pay my bills all day and what mom's going to do? Can we just look at some cat videos or some memes or some TikTok dance trends? I mean, I need a break. And then all of a sudden what happens? Next thing you know, 2 hours have gone. You haven't made a single phone call. You haven't drawn a single thing. You have not even cracked open the folder with a financial aid application in it. You've been online shopping. You've been scrolling through TikTok. You have been texting people mindlessly. You've been looking at social media. And then what happens next? You go, oh my God, holy cow, it's already 3 o'clock. I didn't do any of this thing. And next thing you know, holy cow, you're even more stressed out. And let me go back to that example that I said about micro procrastination, which is the number of times you pick up your phone and you mindlessly just check out and you start scrolling on social media. I often will look at my daughters as they're just like, it doesn't even make that noise, but I would imagine they're going through it so fast. I'm like, what are you doing? Nothing. Taking a break from life. And it feels like you're doing something, right? Because you're like, but you're doing this because you want to check out for a minute. You don't want to have to think about anything. You don't want to have to focus on something. Why? Because your brain and your body's already taxed. See, when you're stressed, it triggers that fight, flight, freeze alarm system in your body. You want to know what procrastination is? It's freezing. I'm going to say that again because I can feel the wake-up calls going ding, 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 ding as you're listening. I'm going to say that again. You know that you have a fight or flight response, right? When you get stressed out, you go on edge. There's also freeze when you're stressed. You feel paralyzed. Procrastination is a form of freezing. Let me explain this. See, life triggers you. A bill arrives in the mail or in your inbox, and you're thinking, how the hell am I going to pay that? All of a sudden, you get triggered by stress. Your brain goes into survival mode to protect you, and you freeze. So, without even thinking about it, you procrastinate on something. Why? Because you're trying to feel a little better right now. That's why you look at social media. That's why you blow off the 15 phone calls, because those feel hard. That's why you blow off the writing that you need to do, or the video that you need to shoot, or the thing that feels hard. And then what happens is, because you've blown it off in order to feel a little bit better right now, you get a little behind. And guess what happens? You then feel more stressed. And this is exactly what Vidi is experiencing. And this is why you got to get in front of this procrastination habit, because this will very quickly spiral out of control. And here she is talking about how she gets triggered, that when she sits down and she starts to worry about, and here's her stress, is it going to be good enough? I got to get this right. I don't know if this is the right drawing to do. And she starts thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. And she even uses the word siren naturally. She even feels like it's an alarm that's getting triggered. Listen to this.
I realized whenever anything good is about to happen, a siren goes off inside my head. Oh, it's too good to be true. Oh, it's too good to be true. Oh, you think you can do this. Seriously, you can't. They chose the wrong person. You're clearly not good enough. There are hundreds of much more talented artists. When you finish this project, they'll know that you are a fake, that you are not good enough. So I think you should just stop doing whatever you're doing right now. So, yeah. Every time something good happens, I find myself running from it. And I think we name this self-doubt as wanting to be perfect. And for God's sake, I don't even like perfect. I don't want my drawings to be perfect. I like the imperfect parts of my drawing. And another thing, sometimes this negative talk, this negative voice gets so loud. I know that if I do certain things, like if I go and give myself a high five, I am going to feel better and I will be able to get back and do my job. But I just don't do it. I just don't. It's like feeling shitty has become a comfortable feeling. I don't even know if that makes any sense.
That last line, It's like feeling shitty has become a comfortable feeling. Viddy, what you are describing makes perfect sense. What you're describing is how stress and this desire, this tension between just trying and expressing yourself and this deep-seated fear that it's not going to be right or it's not going to be perfect, and how that paralyzes you. That's why you're procrastinating. And what you're describing is how it triggers you to freeze when you sit down to work as an illustrator. And now you are in a vicious cycle because you're so used to feeling this way, it has become comfortable. And I want to make a really clear distinction, everyone, that the word comfortable doesn't mean you like it. The word comfortable means you're used to it, that it's normal to feel shitty. It's normal to feel stuck. It's normal to feel like you know what you need to do, but you can't make yourself do this. And I want you to hear me loud and clear. This is normal. This is a normal experience to have, and you can do something about it. And if you relate to Viddy like I do, good. Because then you're seeing it. You're seeing that you're trapped in this cycle, and seeing it is really the first step, and you going, okay, good, because I'm going to break the cycle. I'm going to replace it with something else. If you're still trying to spot yourself in this vicious procrastination loop, let me give you another more relatable example that I've been hinting at several times. How many times have you had that experience where you're going to bed, you're brushing your teeth, and you start to feel stressed out as you're going to bed because you reflect on the night and you think, oh my God, I just wasted the whole evening. I just spent 3 hours scrolling through social media while I was lounging on the couch, watching something on Netflix, and I'm not going to get that time back. And now it's too late. And I know why you did it, and so do you. You were stressed out. You finished the day, and you were tired, and you were stressed, or you were worried about something, or you felt like, my God, I've been concentrating all day. I just need a break. They call this revenge procrastination. When you literally do nothing at night, you blow off time, you waste your time because you're getting back at your job because it stressed you out. And, look, is it a big deal to scroll on social media now and then? Of course not. But when this habit of micro procrastination or revenge procrastination starts to cause a cycle of you coming home and feeling stressed out all the time, and now you're going to bed stressed out and you're waking up stressed out, and you didn't take the time tonight to set yourself up tomorrow morning, and now you're waking up stressed out because you're feeling behind based on what happened last night, this is how the stress builds and builds and builds. And so I think the big question is this: Mel, what do I do about it? You now got me freaked out. I'm no longer frozen. I want to run. I want to take a sledgehammer and break this cycle in half. Well, when we come back, you got me. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you. So make sure you subscribe. Mwah.